Julia Spencer is a real estate investor with over 25 years' experience who owns multiple investment properties. She's a single mother of two who moved to the U.S. in 1993 with only $20 in her pocket. She currently holds an MBA. Julia Spencer is neither a realtor nor an attorney, and the contents of this recording are only her opinions. Get her free guide to investing at juliamspencer.com. I'm your host, Dr. Steve G. Jones, multimillionaire and hypnotherapist. My website is stevegjones.com. Essential Landlord Guide, Module 4, Leases, Emergencies, and Disturbances.
Hello, Julia M. Spencer here. Welcome to my module on leases, do's, and don'ts. This is the third part of that particular series. And I wanted to talk a little bit more about some of the things that you as a new landlord, real estate investor, landlord, should know about and what to put in the lease and what not to do. And also some of the examples of some of the things that have happened to me when I wrote my leases wrong and how I've learned over the course of many, many years how to structure leases. As I mentioned before, it's always useful to have a property manager to do this with you who understands how to write leases and probably has legal documents and templates. But a lot of times it's also useful to put things in the leases that are not in the normal templates, things that apply specifically to your property. And it's also useful to understand leases in very, very big detail to protect you as a landlord and also to protect the rights of the tenant, and so that everybody also understands what their responsibilities and obligations are when entering into this contract of leasing a very expensive property from you. So let's talk a little bit more about some of the things that I haven't gotten to yet. Specifically, let's talk about a clause that I usually put in my leases that talks about the landlord's access for inspection and emergency. Now, if you have a long-term lease, and even if you have a month-to-month lease, anything that goes over 30 days is considered a long-term lease. You want to have, as a landlord, the ability and the possibility to have access to the property for various reasons. And you want to make sure that you have that written in the contract. And the reason that's important is because at the time that the tenant takes possession of the property, which is at the time that the contract is signed and when the lease starts and the tenant has the keys and they've paid their first month, or their prorated rate for that month, depending on when they move in. But the tenant, they basically have possession of the property. And this is a legal term, actually. They have possession of the property, and you as a landlord are technically not allowed in there anymore. Yes, it's your property, Mr. or Mrs. Landlord, but you really don't have access to it anymore. And you don't have access really for the entire lease term, nor are you allowed to harass or just walk in there whenever. You really don't have access to that property at all, nor to any of the items in that property. So you can't just walk in there, and when they don't pay you the rent, you can't just walk in there and take all their stuff and put it on the street. You're going to go, you can get sued for that as a landlord. So you have to be really careful about putting a clause into your lease that talks about your ability to access the property for inspection and emergency. And basically, in terms of just inspection or regular maintenance, I tried to put into the lease that I, as a landlord, am allowed to walk into the property anytime during a weekday, Monday through Friday, from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., and on Saturdays from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. These are very specific times, and these are the only times I, as a landlord, can show up. However, you also want to put in the lease, and this is, you can't just walk in there and say, hey, it's Saturday morning, 9 in the morning, and I want to look at it today because I just decided I was here and I'm going to look at it. You can't do that as a landlord. That would be harassment of your tenant. You do have to give your tenant sufficient notice when you're going to enter the property, and that will be typically 24 hours notice, sometimes 48 hours if it's not an emergency. What I like to put in the leases is the fact that I like to go inside my properties.
For your free guide to real estate investing, visit juliamspencer.com.